I have two cards. This is a transportation couplet. The first one is, what are your views on the four-party agreement, pro and con? Second one is one of those things, that one of those benefits you get when you run for office. You, I think they're addressing you, Chuck, you wrote an opinion piece for the AnnArbor.com in which you characterized your fellow citizens who have concerns about the county transit plan as transit opponents. How is this an example of deep listening? And I think it's your turn to start, Chuck.
So, first question is about the four-party agreement. For me as a Democrat, for me as somebody who's committed to values of environmental protection and services for people who are otherwise unable to achieve them, I'm a strong supporter of transit. I believe transit both helps us address the climate crisis that's made this such an unbearable summer for canvassing. I also think that transit is good for ensuring that people with disabilities, young people, people who can't afford to drive, have access to their community and maintain their independence. So I'm a strong proponent of transit. I've been working with transit advocates like Jeff Irwin for years to try to help the county move forward for a more regional approach to transit. There have been years of both public process through the AATA, intergovernmental negotiations and discussions that Jeff Irwin, Terry Blackmore from the Washington Area Transportation Study have involved with, and a lot of study about what is the best way to get from here, where Ann Arbor has a decent transportation structure, from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, but it doesn't do a good job of evening service, weekend service, or quite frankly, my life doesn't stop at the city boundary, and our current service doesn't do a good job of connecting people to everywhere they need to go. So, given all that, and given all the research and background and negotiation that went forward with it, I'm a supporter of the four-party agreement. Do I think it's a perfect document? No. Do I think that there were things that could have improved on it? Yes. But I don't want that nitpicking to say, it's not perfect, so we're not going to do it. I'm glad that my wife didn't approach our marriage that way, because I wouldn't be married yet if she took that approach. So I think the four-party agreement is an appropriate way to move forward. In terms of that article, I believe that you look at the actions. The question is, do we support transit? This is after years of negotiation, years of study, this is the proposal on the table to help improve transit for the community, both in Ann Arbor and in the broader area. And that, if somebody says that they're for health, but they're sitting on their couch every night eating Kentucky Fried Chicken, you've got to look at the actions. And so that's what I'm looking at, is what are the actions, what's going to move us forward to improve transit, or what's going to leave us behind.
I'm burdened with too much information. I've published a lot of blog posts on this. I've been going to meetings of the AATA since 2008, following this process closely. And with all due respect, Chuck, I think nitpicking is what governmental representatives have to do, because the details of funding and implementation are critical, especially when you have a critical service like transit. I want to make it clear, I strongly support transit. I consider transit very important to the quality of life of a community, to the environment, to our abilities to, you might say, self-actualize and everything else. So it's not a question of being opposed to transit. It's a question of whether we will destroy our transit system by implementing a failed, I shouldn't say a failed, a risky system in its place. I don't have time in 4 minutes to go into the details, but basically what we are talking about is creating a new entity, a new regional transit authority, which will have the power to tax, change fare structures, take on, encumber itself with debt, which then must be paid through by fare structures, and I see a lot of dangers. It is, for example, expected to fulfill the Wally rail system, which has no foreseeable form of support. Wally is not about our local transit system. It is about a train to Howell. And in terms of regional transit, the new system would not empower Ann Arbor residents to travel outside the borders of our city. It would simply fund commuter systems to bring workers into the center of Ann Arbor and then leave again at the end of the day. So I'm having to answer in overly simplistic terms. The documents that are involved are pounds if you actually still printed them out. But my concern is that we are going to lose our transit system. That is the reason I have been a strong opponent of this particular change. By the way, we will also lose the accountability of the board because we currently have a 7-member board that is appointed by our city government. We will have a minority stake in the new system. And one of the first things that they have already proposed is to raise the fares by 50 cents across the system. So I do not see this as an enhancement of transit. I see it as a danger to it.
Chuck, would you like a minute to come back?
So this issue of what details. Yes, it's important to look at the details, and the details of the 4-party agreement were negotiated over years with a lot of stakeholders, trying to understand the concerns of all the people who need to be part of this is a difficult balancing act. Throughout it all, what I've seen is people outside of Ann Arbor, they're worried that if they're part of this, they're just going to be subsidizing buses in Ann Arbor. People in Ann Arbor are worried that they're going to be subsidizing buses that aren't for Ann Arbor. That's the difficult balance. That's the balance that the governance structure in the 4-party agreement tried to strike, where Ann Arbor has representation far in excess of what our population is, and it sort of strikes a balance between population-based and income and revenue-based representation, so that we're just one vote away from being able to get whatever we want. That's the kind of balance, that's the kind of compromise the 4-party agreement tried to strike, and that's why I supported it.
Chuck is right that both township folks and city folks are worried about their contribution to this future system. If you've listened to the Board of Commissioners, you've heard people actually say, this is just a power grab on the part of Ann Arbor. Ann Arbor's trying to get us to subsidize their buses. But of course, the facts are that Ann Arbor will be paying somewhere between 75% and 80% of the taxes to support this system. Because of the way the structure is set up, we will be contributing 2 mils plus possibly another half mil, and everyone else will be contributing a half mil. And furthermore, do you know that Ann Arbor median income is lower than the whole western side of the county? In fact, most of the county has a higher median income than Ann Arbor. The only real exception is the Ypsilanti area, and I do think we should do something about Ypsilanti.
Okay, three people, I'm sorry, who submitted the questions? Would you like to have a minute to?
No, I think they addressed it.
Okay, then let's go on.
One of those questions was mine, and I want to
Here you go.
One of those questions was mine, and I'd like clarification.
Oh, there was, okay, go ahead.
Okay, and Chuck, I wrote the question about the listening, because it seems to me, and this is alarming to me, considering that you could be my future representative, that you're essentially saying, here is a plan, it cannot be improved on, it cannot be tweaked, and if you attempt to do so, you are an obstructionist. You are one of those naysayers, obstructionists. And that does not sound to me like you're listening.
So did everybody hear the concern? So I think one of the factors here is the role of wearing different hats. And when I wrote that piece, working as an advocate, I wasn't running for office, I wasn't thinking about how do I represent the whole community, I was thinking about how do I represent my constituency where I have done the deep listening to bring people together. So that was the role that I was operating in with that piece. Now that's a very different role than the role that a city council person plays. I think if you, and I think, if I wanted to go down this road, we could find things in other people's writings where we say, well, no, I don't think she's or he's listening, but that's a different role. So I don't think that just if Vivienne said something in her blog that doesn't, where I don't feel like it represents my concerns, I don't think that doesn't mean she wouldn't be able to listen to me on council.